suffering from anxiety and depression because when they were little, when they were 2 years old, they were throwing a tantrum. We gave them an electronic to distract them and not let them process that negative emotion. And now we're seeing the consequences of that. That teenagers like, I don't know how to sit with that negative emotion. I don't know how to be uncomfortable. So it's another area that I also work with when I do coaching for parents.
Well, and then we wonder why mental health is so terrible when you have emotions that you've never learned how to deal with your whole life. You've just been found out. And a different dopamine drip, which is the other like addiction of like, it's faster to go on the phone than it is to go play outside and go accomplish something. Hi, it's Tiffany Lorraine Galloway, certified high performance coach and now personal trainer with another episode of the Resilient Mother podcast. Guess what? Xochit's back and we're going to talk teens and parenting. Yeah, you all want this right now. We all everywhere, right? So, Xochitl, thanks for coming back. I'm so happy to have you. So you've had some changes since you were last here. I love the name change, ParenTEEN Lab. What else?
Yes. So I know I have a contract with a company where I see teenagers in my practice. I see between 25 and 30 teenagers a week. So I'm very involved in what they're going through right now, so that I have an overarching, kind of a sense of what is going on with teenagers. So now I created more online courses for parents, for resources for parents. The ParenTEEN Lab is an overall like coaching course. I have one for self-esteem because that's so needed in teenagers right now. I have another one for motivation and stuff like that. So I'm just expanding the resources that I can offer because there's only so many teenagers that I can see a week in my practice. So I'm trying to make those available for parents out there so that they're the ones that really make the big impact on their kids.
So what is the big overarching theme that you saw? You said self-esteem was one. Is that the biggest one? Okay.
Well, yeah. So the biggest issue they're going through right now is like they don't know how to connect. They don't know how to connect. And we're human beings. We crave connection. That's what we're wired to do. And so and it's going to sound very cliche, but it's social media, technology, just the isolation that we can create that even us adults, we're creating it right now. So that they're missing that connection. So with that comes a lot of other issues with that.
What do you tell parents that have a kid that's just not connecting? I think some people go, oh, my kid might just be autistic or something. And that may be true. I'm being, sometimes girls, that doesn't get caught right away because they're highly functional. There are some things out there that might make that even more complicated. But in general, because of tech, they just don't even know how to communicate. What can a parent do?
Well, just open up the communication. And something that I say over and over, and I hear it with my teenagers all the time in the therapy room, is when the teenager's trying to talk to their parent, do not make everything a life lesson. Do not get judgmental. Like, just listen. Just ask questions out of curiosity. Like, tell me more about that. How did that make you feel? You don't have to do the therapist for your child, but just allow them to create that space. I actually had a client a couple of weeks ago, and I do parenting coaching. I coach parents of teenagers. So this is a family that I've been working with for a while. And the client came a couple of weeks ago and she was like, Xochitl, she's like, I actually talked to my parents and they didn't judge me. And I was like, that's how it should be. But so it was just that connection, just listening, just being there. So that is huge. And just making the time and being intentional about how you talk to a teenager, when you talk to a teenager and things like that. So very important.
Interesting what you say, because that's what I've noticed with one of my teenagers in particular, but both of them, they're very hypersensitive to I'm judging them. And I'm not even meaning to come across that way at all. I might be giving some general advice, and advice is usually not wanted unless it's asked for. And I've definitely learned that one. And listen, and I can't assume what's going on. I really have to listen. I'm often very, very wrong about what's going on. And listen long enough, the results are better. But do you think this judgment thing comes from some of the social media, because it uses our psychology against us? We don't go deep on things. And do I like it? Do I not like it? Do I comment? Do I not comment? And then there's no deeper process thinking through things.
Yeah, so it goes from both. So it's the teenagers are very hypersensitive to the judgment, especially for parents. Remember that kids, we all want to please our parents to some level. So when the teenager's trying to talk to the parent and the parent gives another perspective or tries to give advice, and it's something different than what the teenager train of thought is, they're feeling judgmental. And the parents, most of the time, we don't want to judge. We don't want to, done maliciously. It's just the way that we communicate sometimes, the way that we highlight, achievements and things like that has a huge impact on how the teenager is absorbing. So on one of my online courses, the whole module is about understanding the teenage brain. Like, they do care what you say. They do care what other people think. We can tell them all the time, like, oh yeah, don't worry about what other people think. That's part of their development, because they're trying to fit in somewhere. They're trying to belong. They're trying to find their identity. So it's very important for us to just be mindful, listen 90% of the time. There are times where we do need to give them the lecture and the guidance and the this and the that, but it has to, like, first listen and then, like, come hours later or come the next day and it's like, so how did you feel about this, and what would you think about this? It's more asking questions than guiding.
Yeah, I think questions is a great way to do it. What would be some other tricks, like more questions, more listening? What's more of a resilient communication to give them that actually builds their self-esteem?
Yes. So it's very important to be very patient. So this, you can ask questions one day, and then it's going to take like weeks before they actually start opening up. So just be consistent with asking questions and just having that open communication. Bring up conversations that are difficult. Talk openly to them about sex, about drugs, about, bullying, about things that are anxiety, and believe them. A lot of teenagers, they're going through a lot of like anxiety and depression and things like that. And they go and talk to the parents. They're like, you have nothing to worry about, or you have a good life, or you have this, or, things like that. Or unfortunately, we make it about ourselves. It's like, I'm doing everything that I can. I have 2 jobs, or I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And so we turn the mirror back to us, and that doesn't help the teenager. So to your original question about building confidence, super important that we focus on personality traits. So usually when I work with families in the parenting lab, I do a value system. So we evaluate the values of the family, and we figure out which are the values that we want to focus on. Because sometimes we nag our teenagers so much about every single little thing. So I give families like about 5 to maybe 8 values to focus on: loyalty, respect, communication, and things like that. So then I break down the examples. So that's one thing that we can do to build confidence, so that they feel like they belong to your family, which is very, very important. And then another thing is also to focus on their personality trait. That's another exercise that I do with my parents. It's like, let's list the personality traits for this child. For example, you have 3, so your 3 children are very different. Even though you have 2 teenage girls, I have 2 teenage girls too, and their personality traits are very different. So find what those are for each child, and then focus on those. For example, my oldest, she's very persistent. She's not like, she does very well in school because she's very persistent in her work. So I don't congratulate her on getting an A on the test. I congratulate her on the persistence that she has for studying for that test. So it's very important that we, like, just those small switches in vocabulary makes a huge difference. Because, for example, I used to work at a private school, and there was a lot of athletes, and the identity was on winning the game, on scoring the goal, or doing, just the achievement. So when the student or the athlete would get injured, they would come to me because they felt lost, because they didn't know who am I without the sport, or who am I without the job? Who am I without, straight A's or things like that? So it's important to focus on those personality traits. And very simple, we have to train our brain to do those changes so that the teenager can, perceive it and receive it well. A lot of the times it's us being like, oh, it's the teenager's fault. It's the teenager's fault. It's like, well, okay, well, they're hormonal, but we know this. So what can we do as adults? And that's kind of my inspiration for the parenting lab.
I love that, because it's more about the intrinsic value, the inner world, which is where all the values should be held, not in achievements or some list. And it's tricky, because I think we easily want to say, oh, you're being a good boy, or or, even thank you for doing that. But like what you're talking about is more like the work and the effort,
yes,
who they're becoming, and how they're developing, and making those good decisions is so much more important than, oh, you got straight A's, way to go. I mean, it's good.
Right.
But
you can mention it too, but focusing on that personality trait. And let's remember that this is the time when teenagers are developing their frontal lobe. So it's not developed yet. So it's not going to develop until they're 25. So we have to remember that they're they have baby brains still. They have big bodies, and they're it's for me. It's like a pictures like they're shooting it back and forth. It's like sometimes they think straight, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they want to be adults, sometimes they want to be kids. But this is the time and the age where they're wiring that frontal lobe about communication styles, about emotional regulation, about all these things are so important. So if we don't know what we're doing with them, and the teenager's giving you attitude and then you give the attitude back, or like, oh, you just give me attitude, and then you start, so that's how they learn how to cope with that attitude. It's like, oh, well, at least I get a reaction from mom, or, so things like that. So we have to be very mindful that they're still, yes, they're supposed to be hormonal. Yes, they're supposed to have attitudes. Yes, they're supposed to be a mess. That all this, we know all these things. So how can we work with what we know and kind of reframe it to work in our favor and for the teenagers' favor too? But I think as parent, like with what I work with my parents, is like a lot of it is a training for the adults. We want the teenager to change, but it's like, yeah, that comes from above, just like an organization, just like anything else. It has to come from, from above, the example that they're being given at the house.
Yeah. And I find the days that I'm able to just be more the calm in the storm and be the stability, things just go a lot smoother and a lot better. So it's me showing up consistently. It's me not having my own reactions. And even if I do, I got to keep them internal and go deal with my own stuff because they're my triggers.
Exactly.
I need to go figure out why that triggered me. And sometimes I do get caught way off guard and I'm like, whoa, where did that come from? And it may even be the parenting I experienced, right? And I don't want to do the parenting I experienced necessarily. And I was never going to do that like my mom, or I was never going to do that like my dad. But if you don't do the inner work to figure out what even triggered that reaction, it's kind of hard not to have some automatic reactions in some situations.
Absolutely.
But I need my kids to feel safe. I think that's the biggest thing with the teenagers, especially, is that they know I love them and that they are going to start figuring out who they are. I might not understand that all the time. It may catch me off guard, but I'm going to honor that they are developing their own voice.
Right.
And I am keeping the boundaries and being the safe space while they do that. But the biggest thing is that I will always love them, no matter what. No matter what the circumstances are. And they may go through hard things and they may make some dumb decisions sometimes, but that doesn't change their intrinsic value.
Exactly. And I encourage parents to encourage your kids to make stupid decisions when they're at your house.
Yeah.
Like have them take risks at that point. I'm not saying I'm not encouraging drugs and, alcohol. No. That's obviously not. But, if they're going to have a lot of parents is like, well, I'm not going to allow my kid to have a boyfriend or whatever. It's like, allow her to have a boyfriend at 14. Yes, it's like, talk to them about, sex, talk to them about all the values that you have, but allow them to have their heart broken when they're 14, 15. And so you help them through that stage instead of when when they're 17, they're doing it behind your back anyway, because kids are going to be kids anyway. So it's like you said, it's building that safe space for them, not making it about us. Like you say, if you feel that mini explosion inside, it's like, and you want to react, it's like, okay. And it's perfectly okay to say, you know what, I need to come back to you on this one because it's something is not going on. I have to figure some things out for myself. And it's okay for you to take, 30 minutes because what do I do with this? You don't have to have all the answers at that moment, but just know, I feel like a little explosion in me. Why is this? And then, okay, I'll handle with that later. How do I handle my child now? How do I handle this situation? So,
or when I slip up, I am like, I am sorry. I will apologize. I'll be like, I've never done this before.
Yes.
I've never raised you before. You didn't come with the manual, and then we'll kind of laugh about it or whatnot, but it can diffuse situations too. And then be like, oh, look, mom's human too. Mom makes mistakes too. And then she turns it around. So you become the example of we're not really failing as long as we're trying.
Yes.
You go forward and you figure it out and you keep going. And where the resilience builds. And this generation really needs resilience with the world that is constantly changing.
Get your resilient fix in 2026 with Coach Tiffany, now a nationally recognized certified personal trainer and also your high performance coach, host of the Resilient Mother podcast. You can now train with her in person or online. Just text train to 435-294-5456. You can also find her at the Sports Academy in Logan, Utah, or you can email her at resilientmomrising@gmail.com. We'll see you soon. Resilient you.
Psychology against them and trying to create consumers and all these things. It's so important we fill them with as many positive tools as we possibly can.
Yes.
Because of what they're facing. I mean, I can't imagine. I think I was really influenced, like maybe magazines. Oh, I need to look like the girls in the magazines until I learned, oh, they are altered by a computer. Like once I had like a little education, I'm like, oh, that's not humanly possible. Your leg is twice the length of your body. That's not how it works. Nobody's leg is way up here when they kick it.
Right.
My arm. You know, but I only had the magazines to deal with. Like they have everything, everywhere, everything. And then the fear of somebody bullying them, or the fear right now of AI generating things that aren't true, or like, oh my goodness, what they are dealing with, things that we never had to deal with at that level. And I think that makes it even more important for us to show them where the good is in the world, where the truth is in the world, how to discern for themselves when someone has a positive agenda and who does not have an agenda for them. So like really informed choices. But like you said, it needs to happen at home first. You can't be like, well, they'll figure it out. Like, they'll go figure it out in the world. And the main one who was raised where I was like the golden child, like the way I wasn't in trouble was to just be obedient and busy. I didn't date. I didn't hang out with peers. I didn't do any of those things. So I go to college, and my first year of college, about halfway through, I was a hot mess. And even though I was a good student, even though I was talented, even though people really believed in me, I fell to pieces because I'd never failed at anything before. Right. And the consequences are so much bigger when you're out there in the world on your own than to have your, like you said, your first heartache at home, your first failure at home, your first, oh, well, that wasn't great. Let's figure it out. And especially too, just being able to trust your own judgment instead of just always like obediently doing what your parents said because it was the safe thing. Yes. That when you're an adult, like you were making your decisions, and you can't be this chameleon who just does what other people want or what you expect them to do, to be like, or to survive, or to like, you have to give them a voice. They have to be a whole person. They have to have core values, even if they shift a few of them from the family values to a few of their own. Exactly. They don't have that foundation. Then they just become the person that becomes, I don't know if I want to say being naive is not great. Like it's not great. No, especially in this world right now. No. Yeah. Because somebody will take advantage of that. Yes. They just will. And because I don't want to say the word victim, because you choose if you're going to be the victim of those things. You can rise above them. But there are definitely things that I could look back on and go, I was not prepared for that. Right. I was not prepared for that at all. Nobody, I was not ready for that first year of college. That was 13 hours away from home. That I had no transportation. I didn't even have the church I was used to regularly lean on because I didn't know in that area there wouldn't be that available. Like, so my whole foundation I'd grown up with, everything that I'd based decisions on was gone. Yeah. And then I was peer pressure for the first time. Like it was a hot mess. So I very strongly agree with everything that you're saying, because I've lived the opposite of keep them safe, keep them in a box, and then they'll be fine. No, they're not. And with that environment, like I said, we know, we love our children. We want to protect them, like you said, and we build this bubble around them. It's like, and you know, you were the obedient one. I was the rebel on the other side. You know, I was always the rebel. But it's like, because like I said, kids want to please parents. And when you do that, when you overprotect them and you don't allow them to explore who they are, they have a borrowed, personality from you. We have a borrowed personality from our parents. So when we go outside and we don't know who the teenagers don't know who they are, it's like, I can be anything. And that's when you start, kind of having those type of behaviors and things like that. So it's extremely important that I love what you said about how we need to give, like, our kids are not meant, we're not born to make us proud. Like, I'm very, very careful when I tell my kids, I'm proud of you. Because it's like, you're not made to make me proud, you're made to make yourself proud. How do I put that value on who she is and her identity? And I say she because I have two girls. So how do I put that value in who she is instead of my approval? Like, you don't need my approval to be who you are. So it's a very fine line of allowing them and having them explore and having them give it experiences and things like that, so that they can kind of see who they are and find those milestones in their identity that is going to drive them to to be who they are and go for the world. Like, I not to brag, but my girls, one is 19 in college, almost 20, and I don't have to worry about her
being influenced by other kids, and she doesn't drink, she doesn't drug. I mean, she doesn't drink, she doesn't do any drugs, like she doesn't party or anything like that. And it's her choice. Like, I'm like, if you want to do it, like I was giving them the opportunity when they were at home, but she's like, no, Mom, that's just not who I am, because I gave her the opportunity to kind of do that. And I never said, like, I'm proud of you for not drinking. No, that has nothing to do with me, with how I feel, and everything has to do with how she is and who she is. So it's, it's like I said, very minor changes in language, because teenagers are very perceptive and their brains are still absorbing everything that you say and how you do it, and they're learning from you. So, and like I said, they're borrowing that identity from us.
So our words have so much power, even from the time they're little. I look back now and there's a few things I've said that were absorbed in a way I didn't expect them to be. And I'm like, oh, I would like to take back the few things I said that back there that had much more power and influence than I realized. And it's all around this concept of identity. How else do they figure out who they are but through you before they go out in the world? Right. They have like this little genius with their own personality and everything. We have to honor it, but keeping them safe. I think that's where people get stuck, is like, what is safe? What is keeping them safe? Is it in the box in full control? No. Is it making them like me? No. It's that piece of like giving them the self-confidence and the voice, like what you talked about. If they know who they are and what they stand for, then a lot easier for them to go, well, these are my core values. That fits within it. That does not. This is who fits in my life. This is who does not. This is who will get me where I want to go. This is who does not. Instead of like, well, my parents aren't here anymore. Woo, let's try everything.
So everything. And that's what they'll do. Like even like I work with high school kids right now, and they're going to explore who they are, whether they're in front of you or not. And a lot of the kids are that like I said, they follow the parents, and they follow the rules, and they follow this and they follow that. It's hard. Like when we're in the therapy sessions, it's like, let's think about who you are, who you want to be. And they're 16, 17, 18, and they don't know who they are yet. I'm like, child, you're about to go to college. Like, we need to work on this like ASAP. So I work with parents on that to kind of, and it's giving them that, you started when they're 12, and you give them a little bit more freedom, and you let them explore. And then 13, you give them a little bit more, and then you take back. And then, so it's a little bit like kind of a balance beam on how much to give, how much responsibility and how much freedom to give them, so that they can kind of find out on their own who they are.
Yeah, because whatever relationship they develop with you is likely what they're going to go seek.
Exactly.
I think that is why I have a couple exes. So I don't want that for my girls.
We're going to talk about that later.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, for sure. And like I said, and right now, it's teenage years are just temporary, yes. But right now, it's not just temporary, because what they learn, what they absorb, what they wire in their brain is forever. So that is where I'm so passionate about working with parents, about like the relationship that you build with them right now. It's like, if you're just telling them like, oh, you just attitude and just nagging and this and that, it's like, okay, well, when they're 18, they're going to leave. What are they going to do after that? Are they going to want to come back to you for Thanksgiving? Are they going to, and then when they leave, what kind of tools did you really give them?
Yeah.
To kind of empower them to be their own and to be independent. And that's that's all parenting is. We're not, a lot, especially in my culture, I'm Latina. And so in my culture, we do a lot of like codependency with our children. And it's like, no, it's supposed to be interdependence. So we're like, you work, each person to its own, and then you come back together and you kind of, collaborate in things. So it's very important. This age is just so critical. And that's why I'm so passionate about it.
Yeah. And do you see some of those patterns, like codependency, narcissism, or unhealthy attachments with the parents? How do you address those?
Yeah. So like I say, you have to be very mindful. And as a therapist, they know that I'm the professional. So they take it with a little bit like different, kind of grain of salt. So, but I do work on like what would happen, and I do therapy or coaching with them. It's like, what would happen if you did something differently? Like, I wonder where that fear of your child, I don't know, doing something, where I wonder where that fear is coming from. And, so kind of we drill it down, and some of the parents, they do therapy on their own too. So when I do parenting on the Parenting Lab, I just focus on coaching. So it's not necessarily therapy, but I work with, with patterns and skills and just brain patterns and narratives that it can be affecting the way the parent, the kid.
Yeah. And for someone listening, if you don't know the difference between coaching and therapy, it's kind of like coaching pushes you forward. We may hit something where like, where's that trigger coming from? But we're not going to stay there very long. We're going to go, oh, well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
What do you want do about it? Let's keep going forward. But sometimes you hit things that are really deep or maybe dark and need more attention. That's where therapy comes in. And so there is kind of that difference. And often sometimes when you're working through something, sometimes you need both. Just so you can kind of work through the layers of the onion.
Yes. I have to be very, very strategic with working with families and things like that. And the way that I explain it is like coaching is the tip of the iceberg, and then therapy is the bottom of the iceberg. So you know, the emotions and things like that. So like I said, I do therapy with teenagers, and that's where I work. That's the area of work that I do. And then when I do parent coaching, I do the tip of the iceberg, more the behaviors and the habits and the, you know, language and things like that. So it's like you said, it's more present and forward. Yes.
How do you balance having that relationship with the parents of your kids? When can you tell that it's taken, the communication is more open, that things are moving in the right direction?
I mean, and it's giving people grace. Just like you said, I love what you said earlier. Like I remind my kids, like, first of all, I'm human. Like I am not a perfect mom, you know, and I've never done this before. Yes, I parented you yesterday, but parenting you today is very different, especially if because you have teenage girls, you know, so every day is different. So just, yes. So, and no, and sometimes, and I think society in general expects mothers to be perfect. So it's like I see a lot of teenagers like, well, my mom does this and my mom does that. It's like sometimes I have to remind the teenagers, or, you know, when I work with a parenting group, about your mom might be just a girl that she has her own things going on too. Like she has her own fears and things like that. So it's also talking about, where do you come from? Where is this pattern coming from? And so that you can change it and you can rewire your behavior and your narrative. So it's like I say, it can be a very sensitive subject, but it's like, it's okay. Like whatever mistakes were done, whatever whatever baggage you're carrying, like let's go ahead and let go of that backpack of baggage that you have, and let's put it on the floor and like how can we move forward for the benefit of everybody? So it's having those hard conversations. Like I said, it's obviously I'm in a professional position, so they kind of, you know, they're like they want to listen. By the time they make it to my coaching program, it's like, okay, we're gonna do whatever it takes, kind of thing, you know.
When might a parent realize that they might need a third party involved?
When you feel like you're fighting your teenager every day, like you feel you're not communicating with your teenager. If you're thinking about, does my teenager need therapy or not? First of all, take him to therapy. But where's that thought coming from? Like, see, because they're isolating because they don't want to talk to you, you know, especially, well, and then obviously I see the extreme cases of the child is vaping, or the child is doing drugs or alcohol and things like that. So obviously those are like, how can we get a hold of those things, those behaviors? So, but it's just, if you feel like you're nagging your teenager all the time and they're not doing anything, they don't feel motivated, they don't feel confidence, or, you know, and they're on their phone all the time. But go to restaurants with the parents, and with there's parents and teenagers there, everybody's on their phone. So the parents too, we have to be aware of our behavior, because you see the parents on their phone all the time. Or one of my pet peeves, and this is just me, I respect to everybody else, that like the watches with the notifications. It's like, that's a distraction. Like you're talking to your teenager, and it's like, oh, you get a notification and you look at your watch, and then you just broke that connection. So, so it's, you know, like I said, that's one of my recommendations to parents. I understand some parents are like too attached to their watch, and it's like, well, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
You know, to notifications, like, you know, if you're not a brain surgeon and you know, you don't have somebody in the bed, like, why do you need notifications on, you know, to be immediate at that moment? So it's just, you know, like I said, it's just little changes sometimes that makes a huge difference on that connections, because the teenagers, they observe everything. You should hear the stuff that I hear all the time from teenagers, like, well, my parents are not paying attention, they're on Facebook, they're doing this, they're doing that. So it's also kind of looking, I know we have the best intentions sometimes, but it's also looking at our behaviors and how we're coping with uncomfortable situation, with the rush life that we live now, with the, you know, with the bad news all the time and things like that. So what are we doing to ourselves, so that, because that we're projecting that to our teenagers?
So I know I'm a little frustrated that, like, I'm going back to school and it's online. So I'm telling them to get off the electronics, and where am I?
Yes.
It ain't online. So I try to print stuff out. I try to do things. I need to do the physical anyway. Try to get where that's not affecting them. But sometimes it just has that crossfire of like contradicting what I said. But this is temporary, and hopefully they'll do that eventually. But I worry a lot about all the science that's coming out about brain rot, about the dopamine, about attention, about the generation coming out is actually not as smart. Like usually the next generation is smarter than we are. And because of the lack of connection, the lack of communication, they're saying in some schooling settings, at least over here in the United States, that they're just not measuring up. I just recently heard that there's a university, I won't name it but they're dumbing down the generals just because kids aren't passing them. And how is that doing anyone a favor if you're going to university to go into professional jobs without the skills? That's why the generals are there.
Yes.
And I found that very alarming because I'm like, no, we don't dumb it down. We figure out why.
Right. And
why
fix
is
the
it
problem.
working?
Yes. I mean, and that's been happening because I was in education before, in the educational industry before. So that's been happening since after COVID, really. So we just saw a wave down of curriculum, and then we haven't been able to kind of, bring it back up, starting from elementary, middle school, and high school. So, and obviously that trickled down to universities just because the kids are not being prepared in the school system right now. But like you said, it's just, and you can be very intentional with your time, and you can tell them like, okay, you guys, I'm going to do homework for like an hour, so I'm going to be on my computer. But the 15 minutes, 30 minutes that you spend with them is like, okay, no notifications, no electronics, no. So it's just about being intentional. And I was doing my master's degree when my kids were growing up. So it was like making that time. Sometimes I only had 15 minutes to spend with them, or I would do 15 minutes with each one of them, but that's all I had. So, but I made that time count and really be present. But sometimes, like I said, we're blaming the kids. It's like, okay, let's see what we can do,
Yes.
And so, and yes, teenagers, like you said, they're some of the issues are happening is from a society point of view. And so they don't know that the curriculum is being dumbed down. Because they don't know better. But right now like I said, they're huge in connecting because they don't know how to, a lot of my teenagers, they don't know how to sit with uncomfortable feelings and emotions. And so they're suffering from anxiety and depression because when they were little, when they were 2 years old, they were throwing a tantrum. We gave them an electronic to distract them and not let them process that negative emotion. And now we're seeing the consequence.
Thank you for joining us today. Please don't forget to subscribe so we can share this message. We are a worldwide podcast with guests all around the world, and we want to continue to grow this community. You can find us on socials. You could also be a guest. Look for that link below if you'd be interested in being a guest on the podcast. If you know a sponsor or would like to be a sponsor, please reach out to me or Catherine as well.
Sure. We want you all on this journey. We want to hear your stories. We want to share your stories. We want to gain strength from each other because together we're stronger. And to never forget the blessing of being a mother and what we're creating. We're creating the future every single day of our lives. So get on this train with us and let's do this thing, moms.
I believe in you. Believe in yourself. God bless. And we'll see you around. Take care. Do you just feel stuck? It's the new year. You expected some change, but the motivation, the momentum, it's just not there and you can't figure out why? Well, you might want a life coach. Hi, I'm Tiffany. I'm a certified high performance coach and have been for about 3 years now. And I can get people results in small mini coaching sessions. Give me 30 minutes of your time. Let me show you how you can get a breakthrough and transformation by having someone help you see what you can't see and hear what you might not be hearing in your own words and in your own story. You're the author of your story. Let me help you take back your pen and start writing the story you actually want to create, to thrive in your life and feel alive. Text coach to 435-294-5456 or shoot me an email over at resilientmomrising@gmail.com. We've got the solution for you.